welcome to another amazing immigration Q&A with a very seasoned immigration professional. And I'm very excited that all of you are joining with us again today. You know, we've been doing these periodically, and it is very helpful for our community when we know what to do and what not to do. And so today we have a really fantastic theme for you all. And I've been trying to theme them so that it can meet your pain points. And a lot of you have asked questions about this very particular theme. You submitted questions along these lines, and you've been wondering, how do I get help? So today you're going to get help, and I promise you, you will not regret this hour that we're going to be on today. So Ifeoma is our attorney who will be joining us. Just select your video, just start your video again, because I had to stop it, and so we can.
How do I do that?
Yeah, it should say like start video or enable video, because I had to, in order for us to start, I had to disable. And then I'm going to start the recording for all of you in just a moment. Welcome to those who are attending. I see you already. I see you. Welcome, welcome, welcome. And I shall offer your greetings, and I'm going to do your formal introduction right after you. So go ahead.
Hi, everyone. My name is Tiffani Odunlami. I'm an immigration attorney here in New Jersey, and I'm an immigrant as well. So this is exciting for me.
Exactly. And that's one of the things that makes you a different, you bring a perspective that is very unique, very particular to the woes that so many people are currently suffering. And you know what that feels like. Your family, you know what this is. So I'm really happy that you've chosen to join us today. All right, so I'm going to give a formal introduction with her bio here. Okay, so we are here with attorney Ifeoma Odunlami. She's the founder and principal attorney at Odunlami Law Firm. And she obtained her Juris Doctorate from Pace University School of Law in 1994. She has over 20 years experience as a trial attorney with a strong success record. Ms. Odunlami focuses her practice on immigration law, having been through the process, as she just said, of navigating that ever-changing immigration law and policy. She is passionate about assisting fellow immigrants through the often intimidating legal quagmire of obtaining legal status and United States citizenship, which you know we're going to be zeroing in on today. She also donates her time as a volunteer immigration attorney in Northeast Jersey Legal Services and Kids in Need for Defense Kind. So we thank this amazingly gracious woman for being with us today, because there's so many questions you all submitted, and we only had a few that we could deal with within this time period. So we've chosen a few for you, and for those of you who are already watching on Facebook and via our webinar platform, we thank you. All right, so before we jump in, are there any disclaimers that you want to share with us, Ifeoma?
Well, you know I'm a lawyer, so definitely I have disclaimers. The first disclaimer is I'm a lawyer, but I am not the lawyer of anybody who's listening. And what that means is I don't know the details of your particular case. And in law, especially immigration law, what we do or the solution to a case turns on sometimes a minute detail. So the information I'm giving you guys here is just going to be general information, generally. But if you have a particular immigration problem, you need to have a proper conversation with an immigration lawyer.
Okay, and we have one here today. It just so happens that she's one. So if for some reason you need help outside of this forum, please contact her. We have her website right here on the screen now, so you can get a sense of what your particular case will look like. All right, so I'm going to start us off with some general questions that I get all the time, and I'm going to throw it out. And here's the thing. People have called me in distress about situations that have happened in their love lives, their family, their engagement, their marriage. And what is the most hurtful thing in the world is when someone who we would say has more privilege because they have a US passport lords it over someone who has, you would call that less privilege because they don't have a US passport. That is the saddest thing to me. And you all know I am from an immigrant background. My mom is from Jamaica, my father is from the Bahamas, and there have been many stories in my family and friends that has happened. And so we want to address the issue around marriage and family. And Ifoma is going to be offering her expertise around that subject today. So let's get started. And I have a few questions that I'll throw up, and then we'll deal with them one by one. Okay. So the first thing, you already know who I am, Professor Tiffani Knowles, the author of Ola America, Guts, Grit, Grind, and Further Traits in the Successful American Immigrant. I wrote that book with my dad a few years ago. Now, first question on this topic. How is applying for citizenship as a married person different than applying as a single person?
So, my understanding of this question is that I'm going to try my best to answer the way I feel it's being asked. So, if you're married, the way to get citizenship ultimately is to get married to a US citizen. One way, get a green card, and then ultimately after 3 years, if you're getting your citizenship based on marriage, then you can naturalize. Now there are other ways to get a green card and naturalize, but all the other ways you have to wait for 5 years, right? So now if you're a married person and you got your green card through your spouse, you can qualify to begin the naturalization process after 3 years of getting your green card. But there's a caveat. You have to prove to USCIS that you're still in that marital union, which means that USCIS gets another chance to review your relationship. So if you're separated, that's going to be a problem. If you are divorced, that's definitely a problem. So, but it's not a problem without a solution. So basically, what I would tell a client is you should wait for 5 years. Because when you wait for 5 years, then you're not using your marital union as the basis of naturalization. So, as a single person, you have to wait for 5 years because the only way to get naturalized is if you're uh, getting it through the 3 year rule because you're married to a US citizen. So that's the difference.
There it is. And that's the perfect explanation behind this. So that 3 year, 5 year, everyone has wondered what's the difference? It was broken down just that way for you. All right. So next, let's take another general question that we get all the time. Okay. What is VAWA, VAWA, and how does it protect an immigration applicant?
Now, VAWA is a subject that is near and dear to me. VAWA stands for Violence Against Women's Act, and it came to being in 1994. However, despite the acronym VAWA, Violence Against Women's Act, it also applies to men because men also get abused. It applies to children as well. So there are different ways that you can get a green card through VAWA, and that's because the government or the immigration laws recognize that if you're married to, and I'm going to use the marriage scenario first, say you're married to a US citizen or green card holder, and that person is filing for you to get your green card, but it's an abusive relationship, it gives too much power to the abuser. And the laws recognize that. So they've carved out an exception to that rule that you must be married to a qualifying person to be able to get your green card, right? So with VAWA, you can self petition. That means that you do not need your US citizen or green card holder spouse to file for you. As a matter of fact, they don't even have to know that you're filing for a green card. because the VAWA application is confidential. So let's talk about how many ways you can file VAWA, right? You can file VAWA if you're married to a US citizen or green card holder. You can file VAWA if you're the child or stepchild of a US citizen or green card holder and you've been abused by that person. You can file VAWA if you're the parent of a US citizen who is above 21. Now, remember that with a parent, it's only a US citizen, not a green card holder. Now, if you're the parent of a child that's been abused by a US citizen or green card holder, even though you as the parent, you're not being abused, you can file you can file VAWA and get a green card because your child is being abused.
Mm. You see, this is why when I say there is a compassionate side to immigration, there's a compassionate side to the USCIS. These are some of the things that are made available, but some people do not
They do
know.
not know. Yes, they
And
don't
so
know.
I helped edit a book. This is her autobiography. If you guys want to look it up, Cold April, Warm November, it's on Amazon. And she talked about her story coming from Russia as a mail order bride, coming with her sons, and she was uh, in a marriage to a kind of a middle America cowboy, and he had like a trailer home. He didn't describe his home to her the way that he described it when they were on the phone. It was a trailer home, and then he had like a home around the back that he put the kids in, and then he would physically and verbally abuse her. And she found out that she could speak to an attorney to file to get her green card. But initially, she didn't know.
Yeah.
The language was foreign to her and all of these things. So if someone is in that situation, what is their first step?
Well, the first step is to reach out to an attorney, and I'll tell you why. Because different, if you're coming from a different country, your definition of abuse, what you tolerate and what you think is normal in a relationship may actually be abusive behavior in America and may help you get a green card. So I'm very familiar with women and from other countries who think it's normal for their spouse to force them to cook, clean, refuse to let them to leave the house, control them because in their country, that's typical marriage. You know, that's your husband, right, or your wife. So it's always great to do a screening. So sometimes as an attorney, I have to dig because sometimes my clients don't want to tell you. Sometimes there's a shame factor. There's a factor where they feel that they shouldn't, like also cultural, that you don't discuss your marriage outside. You don't tell people about what's going on, right?
Correct. Yes.
And so maybe somebody might have told them to, or maybe they heard watched a Facebook live and they come to me and I can feel that I'm not getting all the information, right? So I begin to dig a little, right? And ultimately, and sometimes I get some information that I know that there's more there. And with experience, I've been able to figure out when there's more information than I'm getting. And I'm able to get that information out. But the important thing is you have to screen the person for VAWA. And when there's some things that make no sense to you, right? Like I'll give you an example. I had a woman who came to me, her son, she wanted her son to file for her. Her son is a US citizen, is 21, right? So I said to her, well, are you married? She said, yes. I said, how long have you been married to your spouse? She said, 20 years. And I said, and he never filed for you? And she said, well, he has some mental health issues and, I was just smiling, like, no, so I was like, wow. I thought about it and I kept asking several questions. I mean, her son could file for her, but the reason I wanted her husband, the reason why VAWA would have been more beneficial for her was she came in through the border. So when you file for VAWA and you come in through the border, they don't care that you came in through the border, that you didn't come with a visa, because there's a difference when you come in with a visa and when you come in through the border. When you come in with a visa, even though the visa has expired, you can still adjust status within the United States. But
Okay.
when you come through the border, you have to get a waiver, which is like a forgiveness, and you have to leave the country and then come back again. And sometimes when you're outside the country, it could take a little while, not as long as it used to take before, but it could take 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, depending on what country you're from. So I was really particularly interested in figuring out whether there was abuse in her relationship. And it took actually a couple of visits. That's a funny thing because she wouldn't tell me anything. So we filed a petition, her son, right? And each time she would come to my office, I would ask another question about what's going on. And the more information, and then one day, right, she came out and told me everything. And it was a horrible story.
Oh my God.
And she had proof. This was not her word versus, it was terrible. And I cried. I listened to her and I cried. And I felt, and I said to myself, next time, trust your instincts. I knew something was going on. And that's why every time she talked to me, I would go back and ask again. So, what's going on with your home situation? I know this is going on. How is your husband doing? So, anyways, even though we had filed a petition with her son, we could also file VAWA because nothing stops you from filing multiple petitions.
Okay.
So we were able to put the application through and put the application through for her, and she was able to, get her papers and all that. And what that taught me was that every client needs to be screened. If they give you, and you always need to get more information from the client because they don't always tell you everything. And then when you screen them, you need to let them know that abuse can be, there are different types of abuse. People think abuse in a relationship is only physical, but abuse can be financial, it can be sexual, and sexual doesn't have to be rape. It can be just forcing you to do things you don't want to do,
Wow.
shaming you sexually. It can be emotional, it can be psychological, it can be verbal, it can be well, it can be physical as well. So
So
a lot of people
here's
don't
my
know that.
question. Is there retaliation? And is this considered retaliation? Will the spouse that is, the person who is perpetrating all of this, is there a risk there for the partner who's being victimized because they don't want to put them in jail or what have you? Is that a risk?
That's a really good question. I get that all the time. People abuse spouses are all, or abuse people are always worried that their child or their spouse will get into trouble because they file VAWA, and the answer is no. Your spouse will not get into trouble. Your parent will not get into trouble. Your child who is abusing you will not get into trouble because, and the reason is this, right? If they would get into trouble, the law recognizes that people will not tell their story.
Got it.
So VAWA is confidential. Your spouse, not your family member who has been abusive will not get into trouble, and they will not know. You can continue to live with them, or you can divorce them if you want, or move out. If you live with them, right, the good thing about VAWA is we're allowed to use our address as a safe mailing address.
Got it.
So everything comes to us. And then we can share the information to the client. Like when we get receipts or more information about the case, we can share it to the client through our secure portal, which requires the client to sign in. So that, because we know that people who live with their spouses, as part of the abuse, they're going through their mail, they're going through their texts.
Correct.
Right. And the thing about VAWA is that even the USCIS officer cannot ask you questions about the abuse.
Oh.
Right.
Okay. Well, then that clears a lot of it up. And I'm so thankful that you did this like a little crash course in VAWA for all of us. If you all have any questions beyond what I've asked, feel free to just ask them at this time or wait till the Q&A toward the end, okay? Okay, so next question is, my spouse is evil and I can't stand being married anymore, but my papers didn't come through yet. Am I stuck?
Okay, so when you say your papers didn't come through yet, I'm going to assume you haven't gotten a green card, right? Okay, because there are two different ways to look at this.
Okay. So
If
let's
you're
say the application has been lodged, it has been filed, but it has not been, they've not received the green card yet.
and that would be a classic VAWA case, because if your spouse has filed a petition, it's the spouse's petition. So as long as that spouse is not willing to go on with the petition, it's going to be denied. Now, if you do not want to be in that marriage, you don't have to. That's what VAWA is about. You can file a VAWA petition, and your attorney can ask that the adjustment of status that was filed be moved to the VAWA petition, so that you don't have to pay $1,225 again. Now, remember that that's discretionary on the part of the immigration officers. So typically, when we have a case like this, when you say my spouse is evil, I'm hearing abuse, right? So we want, you want to file a VAWA case, and then we want to move the adjustment of status petition to the VAWA application.
Okay. All right. So that clears that up. Now, I mean, evil is relative, but you're saying you've been able to build a case for VAWA based on emotional, physical, psychological, verbal abuse before.
Right.
Okay, excellent.
And now I just wanted to mention that now when you say my papers didn't come through, because if the person has gotten a conditional green card, remember the conditional green card is a green card you get when your marriage is 2 years or less. So you still have to go back for another interview to get the permanent green card, right? So if you're in that position, to get the permanent green card, you and your spouse have to file a joint waiver of the conditions, right?
Mhm.
However, if you're in a marriage where your spouse is evil and bad things are happening, you can file under a waiver. You're waiving the joint filing requirements so that you can get your green card on your own. So you can do that by if there's been abuse or extreme cruelty in the relationship, or if you decide to file a divorce, even if there's no abuse or extreme cruelty, you can go ahead and file a divorce, right? Just because you don't want to be with your spouse anymore. However, if you file a divorce, that's another waiver. A divorce is a waiver. You have to prove that it was a bona fide marriage. So
Right.
if you prove that it was a bona fide marriage, you can divorce. If you can prove that it's a bona fide marriage because you have all the information, you can go ahead and file a divorce, and then file it's the conditional green card waiver based on divorce.
Okay.
So there's never any reason for anyone really to be in a bad marriage. That's what the intent of all of this is.
And that's what we want to hear. This is good news for people. And these
Right.
questions come from the community. You all have been asking, what if my spouse is wicked? What if they don't allow me to leave the house? These are all reasons, as we're hearing from our attorney today, that you can file. You can file for VAWA, you can consult an attorney, and it can be very confidential.
Yeah.
Okay, so here's another one. This relates to naturalization. Can I file for a divorce even though my naturalization process is incomplete?
Well, yes, you can. Like I said before, there's a marital union requirement if you're filing your naturalization based on within 3 years of getting your green card. So in that case, you would have to withdraw your application. I advise you withdraw your naturalization application and wait for 5 years so that
Mm,
you don't have to prove that your marriage is still intact.
so in this case, the filing already went through, but it is not yet. I mean, obviously, it takes about a year, let's say 5 months into it, this person wants a divorce, right? And they're saying, but I am still waiting on this, the next, I'm still waiting on my interview, what have you. Your advice, if you is for them to withdraw the application.
right? If they want to file a divorce, if they want to stay in the marriage until the interview, and when I say stay in the marriage, they have to be physically living with the person, and it has to be they have to show that it's a real marriage. Then you can still, if you want to, if you feel like you want to file a divorce, I would say that you might not want to stay there for that long because there are options. You just have to wait an additional 2 years, and then you can naturalize, and you don't have to um, prove that you don't have to prove that your marital union is strong.
But in this case, VAWA does not, you can't use VAWA in a case like this.
Well, you can't use VAWA because you already have a green card. You're trying to naturalize. So this is not a VAWA case.
This is not a VAWA case. Okay, so we're going to stop here on these general questions, and I'm going to get to some specifics of what we were submitted, what was submitted to us. Okay. All right, here we go. Okay, so we got a few in, and we hope that those who are here are listening because you may have some additional context for Ifeoma, and if you do, and if you're listening, please just chat in so we know. All right, my husband and I have been married since January 2014. I came to the US in December 2017 from the Philippines. I would like to divorce him now. However, I don't know what I should do first. File for a divorce or file for citizenship. Which one?
So if you've been married since 2014 and you came to the US in 2017, right? You've lived in the United States. The United States has a physical residency requirement, which means you have to have lived here for a certain amount of time. So if you want to file a divorce, now let me ask you, she wants to know whether she should file a divorce or file for naturalization.
Which one should she do? Which one first?
Well, really, it really depends on her. The problem with these questions are the context is not there. If you've been married all these years, does she have a permanent green card? Because if she's been married since 2014, she probably likely has a permanent green card, which is um, the 10-year green card. Now, the physical requirement of living in the United States has to be met, which means that she has to have lived here 18 months out of that to be able to naturalize. So she can go ahead and put in her forms or her papers for naturalization. But if she's getting it through marriage, my math is just wrong here. I'm trying to figure out if she's had her green card for 5 years, she can file a divorce. It doesn't matter, right? Because she doesn't tell us how long she's had the green card. If it's a
Right.
permanent green
If
card, then
she's
she's
had
had
it
it for
for
5 years. Huh?
If she's had it for 5 years, she can go ahead.
Go right ahead. Right.
Don't worry about the marriage at all.
No, she can go ahead, file her divorce, naturalize. Nobody cares.
But the only thing is, and for those who are listening, if you are on, it only then would apply. We would have to change the answer if you have had your green card for less than that time. And,
Right.
and please let us know. And I believe we're getting a chat here. Okay.
Okay. So if you have your 10-year green card already, right? And you can you have your 10-year green card, you can go ahead and get your divorce and naturalize, because as long as you've been in possession of your green card for well, let me put it this way. They give you a 10-year green card because you were married for a long time when he filed for you, over 2 years. So you have your 10-year green card. However, you have to have been, if you've been married, you've had your 10-year green card. The math is funny to me, but if you had your 10-year green card, then you have to make sure that you've been in the United States at least 18 months since you came here, and then you can go ahead and file. You would not have a problem filing for your naturalization because you do not have to do it based on your marriage.
So it sounds like she can apply for naturalization on her own and not necessarily on, And we see here she's chatting
Okay,
to.
now good. She's asked her. Okay, so she's been here for more than 3 years in the United States. Have you had your green card for up to 5 years? That's a question.
Okay, that's the additional question.
That's a
Okay.
question. If you've had your green card for up to 5 years, then you can go ahead and file a divorce. If you haven't had your green card for up to 5 years, then you're going to have to show. That means that you're using your marriage as a basis for naturalizing. Then you're going to have to show that you're still in a marital union. So it's either you wait for 5 years, right, or you stay in the marriage, don't file a divorce. And the thing about this is you're required to be in that marital union until the day of natural, until you get your citizenship.
Certificate.
So right. So you have to decide whether you can stay that long, or you're just going to wait to have the green card for 5 years, and then you don't need to be with him. Because
Yeah.
even if you leave him now, that's fine, or her. I'm assuming it's a woman because it's Celeste. Even if you leave right now, it doesn't matter that you're not married as long as you've had your green card for 5 years. Then you can apply for a naturalization. And remember, you can apply. Oh, you've been separated. See, that's why I tell you about the information.
Mm.
No, if you've been separated, you have to wait for 5 years.
So there's no marrying, there's no applying for naturalization under that marriage provision if you're
Right.
separated.
No, you cannot do that. Right.
There you
See,
go.
that's the thing. I'm the more information that comes, the more you're like, okay, no. So that's why I prefer. So that's why I have to tell you that I don't know all the information, and some information may require a different answer. So I prefer to give general information. If you've been married 5 years, you're not using the marriage provision. You can divorce your spouse. If you're married less than that, then you're going to have to show that it's your marital union is intact. That's really the general rule.
Good. Very good.
Yes, Celeste, I'm glad I'm glad to assist you.
Okay. All right. So we have an add-on to this question about child custody. And so they have a child that was born before they got married, and that child has been living with Celeste. He is a U.S. citizen, but right now he's in the Philippines with other siblings and the grandmother. What would be done with child custody?
I don't do child custody at all. That's more family law, and it's more family law with somebody who does international, custody issues. That's
Mm,
not really that's not immigration because your child is a U.S. citizen.
right. So a family attorney who does international custody issues. So you'd have to consult someone like that. So, but I
Correct.
thank you for asking that additional question. I'm sure that these things are very complicated when you're having a marriage and then you have a child that came from the union or outside of the union. It does become very sticky and sensitive. So, but I hope that you got some help from that. Okay, so here's another question. Would a low annual income in 2020 due to the pandemic adversely affect your sponsor's ability to file?
You know, generally it will, because the when you're filing for a family member, you're required to file the form I-86 for affidavit of support, right? Which means you have to make a certain amount of money. And of course, unfortunately, last year a lot of people lost their jobs. So what I have been doing in my practice is I give you first of all, I tell you get a co-sponsor, a joint sponsor, right? That's the easiest thing to do. But I know for some people that might be difficult, right? So if we can also use your assets, like if you have a home and you have 401k, you can use assets in place of income, right? You can also there's some clients that because they didn't have a great they didn't make a lot of money in 2020, but right now they are back, they have a job, and for that, sometimes I'll ask them to get a letter from the employer, um, pay stubs. But typically, to play it safe, it's best to get a joint sponsor. Now, if you can't, and we can show that in 2019 you made all this money, 100,000, and in 2020, you lost your job, but now you're back and you're making the same amount of money. I could submit, a letter from the employer saying this is how much you're making, submit all the pay stubs and see what USCIS does with that. If it's not satisfactory to them, they'll send out an RFE, request for evidence, which means at that point they'll say, no, this is not enough. And then we'll tell you, you got to find a joint sponsor. And the joint sponsor doesn't have to be a US citizen. That's the good news.
So as we learned with immigration, a lot of things are discretionary. So they use their discretion. So you're saying if you submit these pay stubs, they, based on what they're looking at, they could say, okay, we understand the situation that happened in 2020. And
I'm not saying that. I'm saying that it may be okay based on certain facts, right? Like if I have a client, but I'm always going to ask my clients to go the true and tried method because we don't like getting RFEs, right? So, but if I have this client that absolutely has nobody to help with a joint sponsorship, absolutely has no assets, but has a great job now and can show a track record of earning potential, we'll do the best we can with that. We'll submit it. But I'm not telling you that that's the thing to do. But the thing about immigration is sometimes things don't work out the way it should be, but you take the best that you have and submit it and see where it goes. And sometimes it's okay. But I always ask people to get a lawyer because you want to make sure. I have a lawyer advise you on what to do because when I do things like that, I have a sense that this probably work. I have an argument to follow it up. So, but the answer to that is the true and tried way is you should get a joint sponsor.
Excellent. Okay, we have another question here, and it looks like someone chatted in as well. All right, so here's this question. We are applying to remove the conditions for my husband's 10-year card. On the form, it asks about children. We do not have any together. I have two. However, they are in their 30s with families of their own. They do not live with us, and we do not support them. Do I need to list them, or is the question only if we have children together?
No, you have to. Well, first of all, I got a little confused because she said remove the conditions of a 10-year green card. I think, okay, that was an error.
Yeah.
Because there are no conditions to live in a 10-year card.
I think she wants to get the 10-year card.
Oh, he wants to get okay, great. All right. So yes, you have to list, as long as you're married, they're your stepchildren. And the instructions will tell you it could be stepchildren, it could be adopted children, biological children. You have to list them regardless of whether they live with you or they've never lived with you. They're your children. And the reason for this is you list them as children, not for the affidavit of support. The affidavit of support only wants people who are dependents, people who you claim in your taxes, people who live with you, people, or if you've that's what it requires, right? So if you're looking at the section of the immigration paperwork that asks you to list your children, it's also asking for the beneficiary stepchildren. So it doesn't have to be only your biological children. So if you're asking me with regards to the affidavit of support, then you're only listing people who are dependents, who live with you in your house. You, your husband, and your dependents, people you claim on your taxes.
Okay. I hope that answered the question. We have a few more, and we're wrapping up in just a moment. I do have a question for Facebook, but I also have a question that was chatted in on the webinar platform. So it looks like Naomi. Okay, I just got my 2-year green card, and I want to get a divorce. More than 2 years in the U.S. Married for a year and 7 months. Any advice?
So you got your 2-year green card, which is a conditional. So you can get a divorce, right? but you have to remove the conditions using a waiver. And divorce is a waiver, but you're going to have to prove that it's a bona fide marriage. The burden of proof is on you to show that it's a bona fide marriage. So when you do the I-751, the form, you're going to check off divorce, but you have to actually have gotten the divorce because you have to submit the judgment of divorce. And then you're going to have to pile it in with all the bona fides showing that it's a real marriage, that you live together, you filed taxes together, you were on the lease, on the mortgage, you had joint bank accounts, all that stuff. And you really have to pile it on because um, you are married for such a short period of time, and you're right, you're filing a divorce. They're gonna look at that. They're gonna scrutinize it really closely.
Okay, very good. I'm hoping that helped you, Naomi. Okay. All right, so we have a question that came in from Facebook. Justice asks, been married for 4 years. Will my husband get a 10-year or 2-year green card?
Be married for 4 years. Will your husband if at the time he got you've been married for, if at the time you filed you've been married for more than 2 years, he will be getting a permanent green card.
If at the time you filed. Okay,
right.
So we're not getting any additional chats from her. So I think that's satisfactory on that answer. Okay, great. All right, let's see if there's anything else here in the chat. Okay, well, we handled all of them. Good. Well, unless you have anything else in the audience, last minute before we say farewell to Attorney Odunlami, she has been phenomenal getting through all these questions, and immigration is very complicated. So as she said, it's general advice, but if you do need any additional support, an actual full consultation, she does have her law firm in New Jersey, but you can contact her. And immigration law is a federal law, so you can speak to anyone across the country. And she would be more than happy. I'm speaking for you, but I'm sure you'd be more than happy to consult.
Definitely.
Okay, so can you let us know how we can be in touch with you, and then specifically for VAWA, because I know that is a very sensitive issue, and I've received calls on that, people who I believe would be candidates for that, but they're a little bit concerned about the anonymity, the confidentiality, and paperwork coming to their house. So please offer your final words to us.
Well, you can always reach my office, 973-993-1900. That's our phone number. And that number is, if we're not in the office, we have an answering service 24/7. And you can leave as detailed a message as you wish, because it's all going to be here. Your information is safe with us. You can also go to my website and put information in there for me. Send me an email through my website. You can send me an email directly, iao@odunlamilaw.com. You can reach me on Facebook. You can reach me on Instagram, instant messaging. And, we're happy to assist anybody who needs immigration assistance. And this is a good time to get all this filing in, because we all know that this administration is working to change the craziness of the past 4 years. So I always tell people, we don't know what the next administration is going to be like. So take this opportunity to naturalize so that you can vote. File for all your family members. If you're a green card holder, you can, for most countries, the priority date is current. So that means that you can file for your family member without having to wait on the line for the priority date to get there. So there's a lot of good stuff happening right now for immigration. And even if, as I'm speaking to you, there's a case law that I'm waiting to read, because the Supreme Court has ruled on something that's going to be in our favor. I haven't read it, but I've seen it. So this is a good time to get all the stuff you need to do with regards to immigration. And as an immigration lawyer, I'm so privileged to be able to help people to get what I have, which is American citizenship. So
that was wonderful final words. And I haven't asked for your story, but can you tell us very briefly your immigration story, just so that we can have hope and be able to identify with someone who has been able to navigate this journey and is here, working professional to help those who are in the shoes that she was in. So please tell us.
So my immigration story is, um, I came in here. I think I was 20, very all by myself because I wanted to go to law school. That was the reason I came here. I wanted to be a lawyer so bad, and I wanted to be a lawyer that was trained in America because I thought American lawyers were just absolutely the best. Watching TV. So
Yeah.
I came here to go to law school, and then I was on an F1 visa, got on the H1, and like many people, at some point it was so difficult because you're looking to get a job, but the employers are not looking to hire you if they have to file a H1 and wait for 4 to 6 months to get papers for you. So that was difficult. And I remember I keep telling people that even as an even though I had the working papers, immigration is so scary that you're always afraid, you're always anxious. And I remember that there's a place I was working at, and the U.S. well, it wasn't called, I think it was called INS then. The office was on the same block. And when I would come out of the garage where my car was, I would walk on the other side of the road and look the other way because I was too afraid to walk on the road where the USCIS office was because it was right next to my office. And then I would cross over when I got to my office. And that's what I did every day. I think it was, well, how long did I work there? Maybe 2 years, 3 years. I was so terrified of There's just always a reason to be afraid of them.
Oh
So
my
when my clients call and they're so nervous, I get it.
yeah.
And I understand what they're going through. And so I got my papers, and I tell you, even then, um, I remember I was traveling with my husband. We're somewhere I don't remember, maybe California, and we're going on this road, and he was teasing me that, we could drive through to Mexico. I'm like, no, 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 because I'm like, stop the car right now, because I'm crossing over, because I was afraid of leaving and not being able to come back.
Yes.
So I had all this.
You had your papers.
Right, right. No, well, I didn't have. We had filed for the green card, but remember, because of when you leave, the way it works, right? If you're in the process, when you leave, if you have been out of status for any period of time, it's a problem coming back in. So I couldn't leave. I had to stay in until my papers came through.
Uh-huh.
And so finally, I got my papers, and I was really happy because for starters, when my family, my husband and I and the kids travel, I'm not the only one on the other, the non-American line.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, so I came in here. My siblings, I was able to get them in here as well. They came on F1s. Um, Everybody's a citizen now. I filed for my mother. She has a green card now.
Wonderful.
So, and I tell my siblings that my mom loves me the best because I filed for her.
Right. Exactly. Oh wow. This is
So,
a great story.
right, but
And you are originally from which country?
Nigeria, I'm
Originally
from
from Nigeria.
Nigeria,
Uh,
right?
for those who are on the line who are from West Africa, you listen to this beautiful success story,
Right.
and the fear and the fright behind. I mean, it's real, and it's a through line within this immigration story. So you're not alone, and it's okay to be afraid, but speak to people who you can trust. And this is why we have these immigration Q&As, so that you can
And,
feel
and I want to mention that sometimes the law changes to help people in certain situations. So you always, if you have an immigration problem, talk to a lawyer. Don't talk to people that don't know what is going on, who are not abreast of the changes in the law, because that's what helped me. Because I was out of status for a period, um, but I was able to adjust my status in the United States on that 245I. So the law is changing every day. And with Biden, who knows what else is going to come. So I'm really excited about that. But I just want people to know that don't be afraid, right? Things work out, right? But you have to get the proper advice, and you have to try not to do things that complicate your case, you know.
Yeah,
You know, so hang in there. You know, there are many immigration lawyers are the most passionate lawyers I know. We fight so hard, you know.
yeah, no, I can absolutely. I would have to second that. About all other law practice, you all are fighters, and I love it. I absolutely do. Iggy, you have a question here. How do we find you on Instagram and Facebook?
Go to Odunlami Law Firm, and I'm on Instagram and on Facebook as well.
Very easy to find, actually.
Very
Just
easy.
you will see it. It'll come up right away.
Right.
Okay, well, we thank you so much, Ifoma, for sharing with us and answering all these questions and being so gracious. And we definitely will be staying in touch with you. And you all have heard how to be in touch with her. So we look forward to offering you the support that you need.
Thank you, Tiffany. Thank you for having me.
You're quite welcome. All right, so I'll say my final words to all of you, and then I will wish you adieu myself. What I would love is for you all to continue to follow us on Facebook, Ola America Series. We obviously we do these programs because we know that there are many of you out there who are not sure what's going on with your case or with the policy or the laws that are unfolding right now. So this is an opportunity for you to educate yourself and even to put it in the simplest terms, that many of you have asked me, my spouse is evil, am I stuck? So these simple terms, to hear it from an immigration attorney, to explain it to you in a way that you can truly understand, that's the goal here, right? So I was happy to offer that for you, our audience today, on Facebook, on our webinar platform. So the Q&A was brought to you by Ola America Series, and you can obviously find us on Facebook. We have our page there. We have a group that you can be a part of too. It's called U.S. Immigration Guide, and we offer tips, tricks, and we share our stories, share employment tips, anything to help us become a success in America as successful American immigrants, which is what my passion is. And of course, you can go to our website, olaamericabook.com, sign up for any additional webinars that we have coming up this month, and email me if you do have any additional questions. A lot of you emailed me your questions so that we can bring them to Ifoma's attention today. So thank you so much for joining us. And one last thing, if you are interested in applying for citizenship, we're hosting a masterclass at the end of the month, so you can register for that now. It's a free citizenship webinar. So go to that website, and basically it's all about avoiding big mistakes on your N400 application, especially if you're planning to do this on your own. So if you are interested in that, go to that website, course.olaamericabook.com/masterclass, and we'll be able to offer you some specific information about the pitfalls of applying for naturalization. You are invited. All right. So it's been my pleasure and an honor to be with you this afternoon. I look forward to meeting up with you again. And until then, bye-bye for now.